I mean, I think the market, the way I look at the pricing, does expect a 25 basis point cut. I think that's probably a good odds-on bet, and there's a possibility of a 50. When I look at the way the market is priced, I see a 78% chance of a 25 basis point cut in July and a 22% chance of a 50 basis point cut. That seems about right. I think the real issue, Scott, and there's, by the way, there's September, 68% chance of a 25, then an 18% chance of a 50. I think the Fed does not quite know what it's going to do, and that's because of all of the things you guys are talking about. If you could tell me exactly how the meeting with Xi and Trump is going to go, if you could tell me how weak or strong the July jobs report is going to be, and then tell me what's happening with GDP, I tell you what the Fed's going to do. I think the Fed is sort of holding in reserve its options and possibilities because it's not quite clear how weak the economy is. I think Joe is right. I think the Federal Reserve believes some damage has been done, though they have not really revised their baseline outlook that the economy kind of plows ahead here at this 2% plus growth. The question is whether or not that GDP forecast that they have, their growth forecast, includes a cut or multiple cuts or does not.
But you have Powell saying he didn't say the baseline outlook remains dicey. He said favorable.
Yeah.
And Bullard said manufacturing is being affected by the global trade war. So
yeah, let me just tell you, Scott, another place I disagree with you. I don't think you equate Bullard and Powell at the same level, right?
No, of course
Powell
not.
is the chairman. I don't think you're doing that, but I just wanted to be clear that Bullard is a president, is a voting member. The chairman, when you have doubts about what the real policy is or going to be, you should follow the chairman.
I got you, but
been a rule.
You know as well as I do, though, that Bullard has moved the market. And Bullard may very well have moved the market yesterday.
He has.
Before Powell even spoke.
He has.
And by the way, he has that credibility within the marketplace. He did move the market yesterday.
He does. And by the way, Jim was ahead of the rest of the Fed in terms of pointing where the Fed was going to be going. I think that's also worth pointing out. I've seen sort of presidents move the market beyond their actual, let's say, strength or position on the Federal Reserve. But be that as it may, I think that Bullard is among those on the Fed. And Kaplan, by the way, you should also throw in there, who says he's worried about excesses, but probably would be on board for a 25 basis point cut. I don't know, Scott. I think that it depends on how you read the market to see if the Fed is different from where the market is right now. Market, as I see it's pricing at a 25 basis point cut. Seems like a pretty good bet for me. If I saw really strong job growth in July. But I will say I just got, as we were speaking, Scott, the rapid update. We're down 1/10 to 1.9% for second quarter growth. I think the Fed could cut a quarter point in light of a 2% growth forecast. But I wouldn't be overly exuberant about the possibility of a 50.
Yeah. And what do you make of what UBS is saying today? If a cut does not happen in July, it might not happen at all.
You know, again, I'd follow the data here. If the data were to show that there is strength and we're on board with it, I don't know that I agree. I assume that's Seth Carpenter, who's an exceedingly smart person and great Fed observer. I didn't read his report this morning, but I don't quite see that. They can always come back. They can cut anytime they want. They have press conferences at every meeting. I think the issue is that the data is going to tell the Fed which way to go. You have this weakness in capital spending. You did have a decline in consumer confidence, but overall, the consumer's been fairly strong. And we'll see if we get a bounce back. I think Joe's comment there is really one worth thinking deeply about, which is how much damage has been done by trade such that even if there's a deal this week, the Fed has to address it. If it is extensive and it starts showing up in the data, then I think the Fed is almost certainly on course for a rate cut.
I don't know. I don't think it's a stretch to say that it has done significant damage.
I think that's right.
All you need to do is listen. And frankly, from the very beginning of all of this, the commentary out of the C-suites was that this was damaging. It was hurting their ability to see into the future and to open the bank account and write these checks. And let me just also say, Steve, in fairness to Seth Carpenter over at UBS, I don't want to misrepresent what the note was saying. They do say that they're forecasting a 50 basis point rate cut in July. And that it's about risk management, not the baseline. And it's not a foregone conclusion, but we think it would be hard to stop. It's not like they're saying it's not going to happen. They're just saying against all that, if it didn't.
Right. And with all due respect to what Seth said, remember that the chairman yesterday repeated his comment about an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? And that's the thinking behind the possibility of a 50. So he even held that out there, this idea of the Fed acting preemptively when you don't have a lot of bullets to shoot what you have often and do it more forcefully. So I think that's really critical that is still on the table. But again, you can't really take it to the bank until you see what the data are going to be.
Yeah.